Wednesday, December 11th, 2024. You are listening to the Daly Dose Sports Podcast, and I am your host, Clint Daly, coming to you from the Mile High City here in Denver, Colorado, and we are back for another week of talking sports with a dose of common sense. Hey, happy Wednesday to you. Hope you had a good weekend. Hope your week is moving along well. Things are good in your world. I hope that you, your family, your friends, everyone in your world is staying strong and healthy right now. And of course, the big news this week is that the very first 12-team college football playoff is now set. Yes, we know who will be playing who. We know who's going to have the tougher path. We know all of it. Now, undefeated Oregon earned the number 1 overall seed, which was announced on Sunday, while Southern Methodist, despite losing the ACC championship game, actually nudged out Alabama to earn the final spot. Yeah, I didn't see that coming. Surprised me. I thought they'd take the bigger brand name. They did not. The number 2 seed will be Georgia. Boise State got the number 3 seed, and Arizona State pulled the number 4 seed. That means those 4 teams also get first-round byes, which were guaranteed to the 4 highest-rated conference champions. Not sure I like that. More on that later. Clemson, which won the ACC title on a last-second 56-yard field goal, but missed out on a first-round bye because they were seeded number 12. The Tigers will be facing number 5 seed Texas. Might be an interesting game there. The other first-round matchups are as follows. Number 11 SMU will go to number 6 Penn State. Penn State did get in, despite losing the Big Ten title game, although they did hang in that game. Number 10 Indiana will go to number 7 Notre Dame in an all-Indiana game right there. And number 9 Tennessee gets in. They will be facing number 8 Ohio State, which did not even play in the Big Ten title game. Those first-round games are going to be played on December 20th and 21st at the home sites. Now, the biggest debate going into Sunday was, what is the committee going to do with SMU? Because headed into the ACC championship game, SMU is ranked number 8. They had gone undefeated in their league, but they hadn't played anybody that strong. SMU head coach Rhett Lashley and ACC Commissioner Jim Phillips insisted, hey, that should be enough to make it in. Regardless of what happens against Clemson in the championship game, it should be enough. Now, I told you last week, I actually thought the committee would give that spot to Bama. They did not. Here, of course, is the question. It's the question you're hearing everywhere in sports talk. Did the committee get it right? Remember this, though. Remember when people were saying, hey, there's not going to be any more arguing. Once we bump it all the way up to 12 teams, we can barely even find 12 teams. Yeah, right. We told you here. We didn't believe that for 1 second. There's more screaming now than ever. So my answer to whether the committee got it right or not is a bit nuanced. Based on the format that is currently in place, yeah, I guess they got it right. Did they overvalue the conference championships way too much? Obviously. Did they take into account the uneven roads for each team individually? Of course not. I mean, you can't compare the schedules of teams like Georgia or Alabama to SMU or even Arizona State or Indiana. They didn't play the same competition. They just didn't. But remember this. This is what they are doing to try to keep all of the conferences happy. And what was it that Lincoln said about trying to keep everyone happy? Then no one is happy. Now, my biggest problem here is, one, I think you were unfair to probably Oregon. Oregon did not get an easy draw at all. You actually gave lower seeds a better draw than you did the number 1 seed. My other problem here is that they rewarded way softer schedules, which in turn is going to encourage way softer scheduling in the future. Here's the question that I have to ask. Does anyone really believe these are the best 12 teams in the country? Of course not. Right now, just based on rankings, and I'm not saying the rankings are the end all be all, believe you me. We have the number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 12, and 16 teams in the country in the playoff. Well, what about 11, 13, 14, and 15? Yeah, they're going to be sitting on the couch watching with the rest of us. Now, personally, I would rather see the best 12 teams. But this is the current format. This is what they went with. And again, they're trying to keep all the conferences happy. How long is this going to last? I don't know. But right now, let's play it off and let's see what happens. Of course, here at the Daily Dose, we will get you ready for those college football playoff games like no one else can. So make sure you keep tuning in because we will get you ready for those games as only we can. Hey kids, today we have something a little bit different for you because I want you to stop and think about this for 1 second. It was on December 10th, 2014 that we released the very first episode of the Daly Dose Sports Podcast. And since that fateful day, we have now produced over 800 episodes because you might remember there are a couple of years back there, around 2017, 2018, we were doing 5 episodes a week.
Wednesday, December 10th, 2014, you are listening to the Daly Dose Sports Podcast. And
Wednesday, December 9th, 2015, you are listening to the Daly Dose Sports Podcast. Wednesday, December 14th, 2016, you are listening to the Daly Dose Sports Podcast.
Wednesday, December 13th, 2017, you are listening to the Daly Dose Sports Podcast.
Wednesday, December 12th, 2018, you are listening to the Daly Dose Sports Podcast. Wednesday, December 11th, 2019, you are listening to the Daly Dose Sports Podcast. Wednesday, December 9th, 2020, you are listening to the Daly Dose Sports Podcast. Wednesday, December 15th, 2021, you are listening to the Daly Dose Sports Podcast. Wednesday, December 14th, 2022, you are listening to the Daly Dose Sports Podcast. Wednesday, December 13th, 2023, you are listening to the Daly Dose Sports Podcast.
Now, we do things a little bit differently here at the Daly Dose. We try not to do the typical meathead, hot take sports talk here. We like to look at things a little more logically. We like to look at things with a glance at sports history here, because sports history can tell us a lot about what is even going on currently and what may go on in the future. We do some big game and even some season previews. We have done our Daly Dose power rankings. We have discussed some of the biggest current events in sports and sometimes just about life in general here at the Dose. We have discussed some of the all-time greats in sports and how they all compare to each other. We have talked about some of the greatest games. We have talked about some of the fans. We have pointed and laughed at a number of sports personalities. We have even built some of the greatest players with pieces from different players that were the greatest. We have discussed sports movies. We have poked fun at a number of different sports owners, sports athletes, and of course, sports fans. We have also been fortunate enough to have a number of different people stop by the Daly Dose and talk sports with us. And if you haven't heard some of these interviews, I really do, I encourage you, you can go back and you can find them. There are links on DailyDoseSports.com. You can check out a number of these episodes, but we've had a lot of guests stop by the Dose.
John from the Inland Empire is going to join us.
Finally, we have Big Rob, our resident West Virginia and Philadelphia Eagles fan. We have Mike from Castle Rock. Next up, we have our savvy veteran Larry from Centennial.
Mike from SoCal, another guy that we lean on quite a bit. Speaking of beast mode, Oakland Raiders, Marshawn Lynch, former professional boxer and current trainer, manager, and promoter, Frankie Sanchez. Raymond from Washington, D.C. Joining us first is the Democratic Party nominee, former First Lady, former New York State Senator, and former Secretary of State, Hillary Clinton. Next up, we've got American businessman and Republican Party nominee Donald Trump as the nation's most outstanding senior gymnast, University of Minnesota and Colorado native Lindsay Mabel. As promised, joining us right now is a guy that knows something about coaching in single elimination tournaments. Russ McKinstry has coached high school basketball in the states of Colorado Arizona, and Kansas for over 30 years. Now, for those of you who don't know, and I haven't made mention of it, but for those of you who don't know, we are having this discussion with Bob Daly, who is my father. We are actually going to be joined by our Major League Baseball expert and our featured columnist, young Jimmy. But we have Jeff from San Bernardino coming in and joining the panel.
You know, one of the listeners that I hear from quite a bit, and I've told you guys in the past, one of the listeners that I hear from, whether it's tweets or hitting me on Facebook or hitting me up on Twitter, sending emails, whatever it might be, is Trixie down in Florida.
Let's get over to our conversation with NFL agent Alex Beaudry right now. I would like to welcome author Phil Barth to the Daily Dose. Daniel Hennis is the CEO of a company called Engage.
Chris from Hollywood is going to discuss the Academy Awards that took place on Sunday night. Now, he was on the red carpet, rubbing elbows with the whole Glitterati crew on Sunday night.
Joining us today on the Daily Dose, we have a guest that I'll be very honest, I personally cannot wait to speak with, because Andy Fry is a sports writer who has written for ESPN, but he's also written for Rolling Stone magazine. He currently writes for Forbes magazine.
Joining us today on the Daily Dose, Dr. Justin Newman is an orthopedic surgeon and a sports medicine specialist. Joining us right now on the Daily Dose is a brand new guest to the Daily Dose and someone that is campaigning for a cause that, I'll be honest, is very near and dear to my heart. Helen, from a group called Let Colorado Play Initiative, has been working so hard to get Colorado high school athletes back to playing sports. Right now, I want you to sit back and relax and enjoy our talk with Freddie Stevenson. Joining us this week on the Daily Dose, we have a very special guest that I am really looking forward to speaking with, because Dr. Matthew Preventure is one of the nation's leading orthopedic surgeons, specializing in the surgical treatment and rehab of injuries to the knee and shoulder. In 2012, he took on the position of Chief of Sports Surgery at Massachusetts General, visiting professor of Harvard Medical School, and medical director and head team physician for the New England Patriots football team. Joining us today, we have a couple of gentlemen that are actually former Air Force Academy Falcons. We have Brian McDonald and we have James Manu joining us. Sit back and enjoy our conversation with author, sports writer, and teen advocate Ahmad Vital. Joining us this week on the Daily Dose, we have a very, very special guest, because Ray Hartgen has co-wrote a book called Immaculate, How the Steelers Saved Pittsburgh. But right now, I would like to welcome Dean Tolson to the Daily Dose. Jared Zeidman is a former college basketball coach that is now serving as a consultant for college coaches. So right now, I want you to sit back and relax and enjoy our conversation with Lights Out. Yes, I am talking about Sean Merriman. Coach Lauren Borgmeyer, thank you so much for joining us here on The Dose. In fact, we just need to get over to our interview right now with basketball coach Bill Benton. You know, it hasn't happened very often, but one time I did even have to have a guest host take the show over for 1 week. You could hear that intro here.
Wednesday, June 22nd, 2022. You are listening to the Daily Dose Sports Podcast, and I am not Clint Daly. But this week on The Dose, I am your host, Peyton Daly, Clint's 17-year-old daughter, coming to you from the Mile High City, that is Denver, Colorado.
Now, if you've been listening to the Daily Dose for very long, you may have heard some of our advertisements for various sponsors. Of course, we've done sponsorships with Manscaped. We've done sponsorships with Loot Crate. We even did our very own Daily Dose commercial that was being played on our podcast network.
Are you listening to the Daily Dose Sports Podcast? Each and every week, Denver sports writer Clint Daly brings you a sarcastic look at the top stories in the world of sports. Whether it's baseball, basketball, football, or hockey, the Daily Dose brings a unique common sense outlook on the world of sports. And if you listen to the show every week, you will be entered into a contest to win tickets to some of the biggest sporting events in the world.
Wait, we don't actually do that.
What?
You don't get entered into win any tickets.
Why? Why does that not happen?
That's not what we do at the Daily Dose. That's not.
What kind of show is this?
It's a sport. You said it's a sports show. You said what it was.
But you don't win anything.
But you don't win anything for listening. You listen and you enjoy the show, but you don't.
I don't understand.
Just keep going.
Each week on the Daily Dose, Clint interviews some of the biggest names in sports and entertainment.
That's not. You made that part up. That's not what we had you read. We had you come in with the sexy voice and all, but then you're adding stuff that the show isn't really about.
Who talks on the show?
I do. I talk on the show. We talk about
have no guests.
But sometimes we do, but it's not like we're going and getting LeBron James or like Michael Jordan. A lot of people listen. There's a lot of people that like the show.
Are you sure?
We brought you in.
Do we know?
We brought you in to do something very specific, and you're not doing what we asked you to do. Just finish the read.
Fine. Listen to the Daily Dose Sports Podcast wherever fine podcasts are hosted, and you can always find it on the Rogue Intel Podcast Network.
Was that so hard?
Of course, one of the staples of the Daily Dose Sports Podcast has been the Daily Dose Top 5. You know, we started the Top 5 back in the days of doing the radio show. And like we have always said, the Daily Dose Top 5, it has a mind of its own. It can go in a million different directions, as you will see right now.
We talked about a little bit early, Peyton Manning last couple weeks is having just a little bit of struggles. Even when he does have time, it seems like there are times he can't quite find, his accuracy. He's not quite throwing the ball as well as he has recently. What's really going on? And it's up to us here at the Daily Dose to bring you that information. So without further ado, we bring you the Daily Dose top 5 reasons Peyton Manning is struggling right now. And our list is the top 5 reasons so many fans do not like LeBron James. We've got Christmas coming. In just 2 days, it'll be on Friday. And I started to think about, there's certain athletes, they just kind of have that giving spirit. They just kind of have that, I don't know if it's an unselfishness, but it's a willing to give in key times. And I just thought about, some of these athletes, they could be Santa Claus. There are certain athletes out there. They are so giving in their nature. They could be Santa Claus. Let's count down today. The Daily Dose top 5 athletes that could be Santa Claus. The Daily Dose top 5 Atlanta Falcons excuses for giving up the biggest comeback in Super Bowl history. Bottom line, Kyrie Irving thinks that he's being lied to. The earth is not round and the earth is actually flat. You would think eventually we'd have like a lot of people falling off the edge, but what do I know? What do I know? And hey, I don't have a problem with Kyrie Irving being skeptical of what sometimes science or different people shove down our throats. I'm a cynic about almost everything, so I understand that. You might want to pick your battles, but hey, Kyrie, do what you do. If you're skeptical of this, you be skeptical of this. So, in light of Dr. Irving explaining to us about landscapes and things being perpendicular, and we thought that we would break some news and share a few other things that Kyrie Irving believes in. Because it's not just this, apparently. Yes, Kyrie Irving believes the earth is flat. That's not all. This week on the Daily Dose, we count down the Daily Dose top 5 other things that Cleveland Cavaliers point guard Kyrie Irving also believes. But I have seen some great college football players that have ever played the game. And I'm telling you right now, I don't know that these are the greatest players ever in the history of college football, but I'm telling you this, these are 5 of the most entertaining college football players that I have ever seen. If you give me any of the 5 guys on this list, I'll bet I can win some serious games. Now, not every guy on this list, they might not have gone on to success at the NFL level. Some of them did, some of them didn't. That's the great thing about college football. That's one thing about college football that's always appealing to me. It allows for different types of players to have success. I understand there might be a quarterback that we look at and you say, well, yeah, but he never did it in the NFL. I don't care. He was as entertaining as it gets in college football. And that, to me, sometimes is what is so exciting about college football. You don't know who's going to be great. You don't know which system is going to work for which kid. And we get to see guys that never went on to professional success be some of the best players in the history of the game. So I'm going to give you 5 of the most exciting college football players that I personally have ever seen play the game. Now, as we do every single week, as you just heard, we've been talking about it throughout the show. Over the weekend, the Canelo Alvarez versus Gennady Golovkin fight produced something, let's say, unique. On one hand, it was a highly competitive fight between 2 excellent fighters. On the other hand, the decision didn't seem to make a whole lot of sense. Look, I'm okay with the judge that ruled it a draw. I disagree with it, but I'm okay with it. It was a close fight. I'm okay with the judge that had Golovkin a little bit ahead. Again, close fight. I thought Golovkin controlled the action. The question I have is how Judge Adelaide Bird scored the fight 118-110 in favor of Canelo, meaning that she scored 10 rounds for Canelo and just 2 for Triple G. Please tell me what fight she was watching. Oh, and this isn't the first time that her scoring has been flawed. See, it seems Judge Bird has a history of not making sense. In fact, the Nevada Gaming Commission has said she will not be judging any fights in the near future. Let's not forget, she also ruled the Canelo versus Mayweather fight a draw. She's had her appointments protested in the past because she's so inconsistent as a judge. So this isn't the first time she's been involved with a controversial ending. And you know what else? It's not the first time that boxing has had a poor decision. We decided to put together a list of bad decisions that we have seen in boxing. And I'm going to be honest, it wasn't easy because there are so many to choose from. So right now, we present to you our Daily Dose top 5 worst boxing decisions of all time.
We've seen people trying to copy Michael Jordan with the baggy shorts and the shaved heads and the Air Jordans. We are now seeing a generation of kids imitating Steph Curry with his dribbling and his passing and his quick 3-pointers. Now, it doesn't always go well. I'll be the first to admit that. But they're shooting those quick threes. They just don't always go in. But here's the question. Who right now copies LeBron James? It's kind of hard. I mean, most kids aren't 6'8" and 250 pounds. Most kids can't grow a beard like a Mennonite. So how can kids put some respect on the name LeBron James? I mean, I guess you can walk like a duck, but that only goes so far.
Oh, no, you didn't.
Well, I had an idea. What if kids copied something of LeBron that they could copy? And I thought, what would that possibly be? Well, what if you copied LeBron's hairstyle? No, hold up. I'm not making fun of him. I'm saying it is the one thing you could probably copy. Like, I would say most of us could have a hairstyle, like LeBron James. It's not that lofty of a goal, is it? Well, I have an idea. What if kids went to the barbershop and they said, here is the hairstyle I want. You sit down, you ask for the hairstyle of your hero, and your barber says, say no more, fam, I got you. But what would we call it? Would you sit down and say, I want the LeBron? I don't know if that works or not. But we have a couple of nicknames for LeBron's hairdo that you could sit down and ask for. We would know you're asking for the hairstyle of one LeBron James. Let's get started. Top 5 nicknames for LeBron James haircut. Okay, so for those of you who are new to the Daily Dose, you might not be familiar with the Daily Dose I-Team. The Daily Dose I-Team is a group of highly trained individuals who have proven to be more than capable of tracking down all the information that no one else can seem to find. Of course, we know Big Rob is the president of the Daily Dose I-Team. He actually came on last week, and we discussed Super Bowl 55, but then I had to send Big Rob on a mission. He had some things to do. He had to get the wheels in motion for tracking down a pressing issue. For those who don't know, again, we do have other members out there of the Daily Dose I-Team. We've got Mike, we've got John, we've got Travis, even young Jimmy is a junior member of the I-Team, and they track down the stories that no one else can find. They solve the mysteries that no one else knows the answer to. And last week, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers were celebrating their Super Bowl victory, and we've all seen the video of Tampa Bay Buccaneers quarterback and Daily Dose MVP, Tom Brady, staggering around and almost falling down. And hey, it's pretty easy to see Tom Brady
was very clearly heavily intoxicated. And we all thought the same thing. Wow, Tom Brady is trashed. Well, that's not what the Daly Dose I-Team thought. They thought something else. Their brain went to, how did Tom Brady get trashed? And somehow, the Daly Dose I-Team has managed to track down the receipt of the tab for one Thomas Edward Patrick Brady Jr. on the day of the big Buccaneers celebration. And right now, on the Daly Dose, I am going to read to you exactly what Tom Brady had to drink on that fateful day. You know, we talked earlier about Dallas Cowboys offensive lineman La'el Collins getting popped for using an illegal substance and then missing tests and then trying to bribe his NFL tester. But let's all be honest. When it comes to sports, everyone is looking for some sort of an edge. And a good number of athletes will look for ways to cheat to make themselves better. Hey, it happens all the time. It might be Tom Brady deflating footballs. It might be Ben Johnson injecting some sort of horse medicine into his body. But athletes are always looking for an edge. But just like that situation with La'el Collins, it's one thing to cheat. It's another thing that when you get caught, then you really put on the show. Because today, our Daly Dose Top 5 is counting down the top 5 dumbest excuses given by athletes when they were caught doping. Now, as we do so many weeks here at the Daly Dose, we need to get over to our Daly Dose Top 5. This week celebrates the 9-year anniversary of the Daly Dose Sports Podcast. But, you know, it is interesting to think about how different this all could have gone. You know, back in 2013, I was a featured columnist for Bleacher Report. And I had a friend tell me that a small local publication here in Denver needed a few sports articles. So I wrote them a few articles, never thought I'd hear from them again. But then I was asked to do a guest spot on their NFL radio show here in Denver. So I did, and it went well. And the next week, I was asked to come back, and I appeared on the show again. And then when I got done with that show, I was given my own show. They were like, hey, you can have a show. You figure it out. You do what you want with it. There were a few problems. One, I didn't have a plan for a show at all. I was given my own show, but I didn't know what I was doing. I had never considered doing my own sports show. Like, how would one go about doing that? So guys around the radio station were trying to come up with like show titles. And I was trying to come up with like a plan for the show and what it would be about and what it would be. And so Big J, Jason McBride, came up with the name The Daly Dose. Jason has actually been on the podcast maybe a few years back. But he came up with the name one day. And he was like, you got to do something with the last name. You should be The Daly Dose. Cool. All right. I guess that's what it's going to be. And then one day I was at the station and I was actually getting ready to do my very first show. I'm really nervous. I'm not sure what I'm going to talk about. I'm kind of wondering what I'm going to do. And this guy that kind of did some engineering stuff around the studio, he actually did a lot of like making t-shirts and stuff in the back. Well, he comes in the studio and he says, so what's your show going to be about? I was like, sports, I guess. I don't know. And he goes, no, I know, but like what? Like local sports, national sports, world sports. Like what is going to make your show different from the other ones? And I literally had no answer for him whatsoever. So I started to think about it and I said, well, I want to discuss all sports, the major sports especially. And I wanted to have a rule. If I was going to talk about it, it either had to be informative or I hoped it would at least be funny. That was the rule. And so from that, the Daly Dose was born. It ran for a while here in Denver. And then when the radio station folded, as they do, the podcast began. And yet there are times that I think back to how different things could have been if I had gone a different direction that one day, because I kind of just decided it at the spur of the moment as I was going on the air. How different
could this all have been? And what if I had gone with some of the other suggestions that were on the table instead of the Daily Dose? So today, our Daily Dose Top 5 is going to reveal the top 5 rejected names that we actually turned down. Hey, understand this. The butterfly effect is real. You'll see what I mean. You know, we have been fortunate to meet some really cool people along the way doing the Daily Dose. I have literally made friends that I have never even met in person doing this crazy podcast. We have had thousands of listens. We've had thousands of downloads, literally in countries all over the world. Just this last week alone, just this last podcast, here are the countries that were listening to the Daily Dose. Obviously, the United States, Singapore, France, Canada, the United Kingdom, the Philippines, Slovakia, the United Arab Emirates. Yeah, I wonder if the NBA had anything to do with that. Australia, Belgium, Iceland, Portugal, Russia, Trinidad and Tobago, not just one, both. Spain, Ghana, Mexico. We get listens literally all over the world. That is just from 1 week. That is just from last week's episode that I just read those from. But you know what? More important than any of this other stuff, we have made here at the Daily Dose thousands of dollars in donations to a number of charities on behalf of the Daily Dose Sports Podcast. From high school sports programs to wounded warriors to domestic victims of like tornadoes and hurricanes and charities that help wounded veterans coming back home. The Daily Dose donates any of the money that we make from listens and advertising, and we donate that to charities or we donate that to people in need. And that, I'll be very honest, is something that I'm very, very proud of. Above all else, the sports stuff is fun. Doing the podcast is fun. Getting together with friends and getting to meet some of the cool people we've had on the show, that stuff is really fun. What we've been able to do charity-wise, that has actually been really, really cool. I want to say thank you to every single person who has listened, who does listen, who used to listen, who has shared the podcast, who has been a guest or told a friend about the Daily Dose Sports Podcast. I can't tell you how much I appreciate that. And you know, I've said it before, I don't know how long the Daily Dose is going to continue. I never expected it to go this long. I thought it would be a few months and that would be it. I'd get tired of it. No one would listen. Fortunately, I have been able to continue because 1, I am an idiot. And 2, I have some very dear friends and family members that have encouraged me to keep going. Lastly, and I know I say it every week, but I literally could not do the Daily Dose without JSP. Their support has meant everything. I couldn't do it without JSP. I know I say it every week. A lot of you might not know what that means. They do. I couldn't do it without them. Hey, I will see you all next week. We will get back to talking sports again in our usual format, and we will be previewing that college football playoff. So be sure you stop by and be sure you let a friend know to do the same. But I thank you all for the past 10 years of listening to the Daily Dose Sports Podcast. I do again have to say thank you to JSP. We could not do any of this without you. I will see you all next Wednesday. Have a great week, everybody.
Okay, Chris, I'm not sure if you've actually heard the Daily Dose Sports Podcast before, but we are a sports show, and there was a sports aspect to the Oscars on Sunday with Icarus, you know, the story of the Russian doping scandal winning the documentary of the year, and Kobe Bryant winning the Oscar for Best Animated Short. First off, I want to ask you, did you see either of these movies? I saw Icarus. I didn't see the Kobe Bryant short. Did you see either one of those movies?
No, unfortunately I didn't. Wait, this is a sports show?
Yeah, well, yes, we're a sports show, Chris.